Marjon Carlos, who is a journalist, editor, public speaker, and host of Your Favorite Auntie. Her work sits at the intersection of fashion, beauty, and politics. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this because some people are kind of sensitive about timelines, but for over a decade now, we were master's students at Columbia, and we saw that our interests aligned, and we thought really deeply about the world of beauty from a political lens. So today we have you on. This might sound a little superficial, but we're going to go deep. We're going to talk about WAP.
Absolutely.
WAP.
Absolutely.
So before we do that, and so I'm so glad that I get to introduce you, I want folks to get a snapshot of your work. So you recently wrote the cover story for the Elle issue that just came out this month, which was an interview with rapper and, as you say, polymath CARDI B. And so I want to throw to some quotes in your piece that I thought were just so incisive. As you say, the polymathic force, former stripper, one-time reality star, raptress, wife, mother, converted the salon into a backdrop for an earnest conversation around the most urgent issues facing Americans today: job creation, police brutality, a livable minimum wage, and workers' rights. Yeah. The scene was full of obvious asymmetry. CARDI's glamour persona played irreverently off of Sanders's mensch, but in so many ways, it was just two New Yorkers talking about the issues of the day with all the camaraderie of the politicking found at the Dominican bodega that dots CARDI's native South Bronx neighborhood. And here you're talking about the Sanders interview a couple months ago, actually, maybe even a year ago.
It was a full year.
CARDI B.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a full year. So you open up this piece talking about how she is an unlikely political commentator that has the ears of so many and is ahead of her time in so many ways. So let's take a look at a clip from that interview, and I want to get your commentary on it.
Certain people like to brag that there is more jobs now in America, but it's like, yeah, there's an increase of jobs given, but what are they paying in these jobs? They're practically paying nothing.
You got it. That is exactly the issue. So you can get a job, but maybe you're going to have to work with 2 or 3 jobs.
Exactly.
Legislation that I've introduced, which was passed in the House recently, U.S. House, would raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour.
So prescient. Ahead of her time.
Yeah, ahead of her time. She was talking about these types of issues well before the election cycle was beginning. I mean, obviously, she was working with the potential candidate, Bernie Sanders, but I think that she was talking about real issues that we are talking about today and trying to figure out how we're going to resolve. And I think people really discredited her, and they underestimated her influence and her power and her intellect. She's not a Diane Sawyer, but isn't she, like, at the same time, because she's able to speak very, very saliently to politics. She's able to touch and reach millions of people in ways that perhaps even Diane Sawyer can't, you know, and some of the biggest political commentators in the game. So I was really drawn into her politics and the way that she expresses herself. And definitely in the way that people underestimate her. I think that's a very important part of it.
Yeah, I want to throw to another quote from your piece that where you sum it all up, that CARDI's advocacy for progressive social policies like Social Security and other public safety nets often puts her in a league of her own. And I know this might be provocative to say, but if she wasn't 27 years old, I always said she would be a massive challenger to Trump. She's a reality star. She knows the issues that are on the minds and hearts of folks. And she also knows how to center the conversation about the things that she wants to talk about.
No, absolutely. She is a populist artist, and which I stress that in the piece. And so she's a woman of the people. And the reason why she became so popular was not just her music, but was the fact that she was so accessible. She really gave herself over to her fans, and she was very honest and very forthright. And she didn't really try to put on a facade. And I think that cult of personality is what people are really drawn into by her, and that authenticity. And so if she did run for office, I don't think that it would be so far-fetched to say that she could give Trump a run for his money, because Trump also kind of stands in that same ideal, that framework, which is that he can galvanize a particular constituency, and they're drawn into his beliefs and the way that he thinks. Obviously, CARDI is much more evolved, and she's much more of a leader of people, and she's definitely someone who's trying to work for the better of people, but than Trump. But I am really drawn to this idea of them both kind of being populist figures, and that's what accounts for a lot of their fame and a lot of their success. So it's an interesting parallel, but it's
also aligned with why her and Bernie so early on, Uncle Bernie, she saw some sort of resonance with, because not only were they calling for this public safety net, but she was also, as you continue to say, really advanced in her political analysis. She's talking about a tax receipt. Like, why don't we have our tax broken down so we know where our money is going? And then the other part of it is that she, as you said, is really accessible to folks. And then something else, which is maybe not so surprising to people, but she has become a Black feminist icon. And I want to talk about that and the power of WAP. Of course, we can't cuss here. So if you don't know what that means, please go look that up.
Google.
Google is your friend, but it's the inverse of BDE. And if you don't know that either, do look that up. But so tell us about WAP politics, and what did she usher in?
I think that she ushered in an unapologetic ownership of female sexuality and female sexual agency. And I think that's what scares a lot of dissenters, and predominantly those dissenters are men. I think that she's a woman who, the song comes from a long line of female rappers putting it out there and really declaring what they want sexually, just like their male rapper counterparts have. So it's not like this is such a far-fetched song, like, oh my gosh. I mean, we have Dina Howard, Freak Like Me, Kia, My Neck, My Back. Little Kim's Musicology period. Like, we know that like female rappers before her have been forthright about their sexuality, but I think that this dynamic duo really, it's really, really bold and very straightforward, and it really tells women to declare openly what they want in bed, and that in of itself can scare everybody, and it's become the talk of the world, basically. I mean, it's gone international. It's #1 hit, and it's generated a lot of money already. And I think that has a lot to do with it scares men to see women so totally in control of their sexuality.
But there is a persistence of a double standard here. We have Meg Thee Stallion, who's in the video, and the community responses are pretty hotly divided around if you could explain what happened to her and how people reacted to Meg Thee Stallion and the violence that was imposed on her.
So Meg Thee Stallion, I think right after she had shot the video for WAP, was in an altercation with a rapper named Tory Lanez, who they had some type of romantic dalliance, and they had a fight, and he shot her in the foot twice when she was getting out of her car, and she tried to hide those details and try to save his behind and hers. And she didn't really want to go to the police with these types of details, but obviously became a huge issue. And people were like, who actually shot you? Did you actually get hurt? People were really doubting her story. They were like, Tory Lanez would never do something like this. And, Megan really had to go on an Instagram Live last week and really just declare the fact that this is what happened. This is, this man attacked me and assaulted me, and you guys made fun of me, and you made fun of the violence that was committed against me. And where are Black men? Where are men supporting women, and specifically Black women? And so that was really like what fell out of that. And it was so interesting to see this woman who is a part of the biggest song in the world, which is all about sexual agency, which is all about domination, female empowerment. And you can see that men are not able to receive that. And that is kind of where the conflict rises, right?
Well, I just want to add that for a lot of abolitionists, there's a desire to not go to the police for a reason, because we know what happens, especially to Black folks, when you call the police. So that's the reason why she held off on doing it. She did reveal his name, but I think what you're saying is so fascinating, that there is an iconizing of her at the same time that she still remains so vulnerable. And I think that's a big takeaway that we can have when it comes to the power of Black women, but also making sure we know that socially they're still not protected.
Exactly. It's, you can have the #1 song in the world. You can entertain the entire world during a pandemic. Savage Remix was the #1 song in the world during the quarantine. But when you need people's support the most, they go silent. It's as if Black women are only good for entertainment and looking good. And when we voice our concerns, when we voice violence, we're not heard and we're silenced. And, ultimately that really is crushing. And I think it needs to be discussed more, that dichotomy.
And if folks want to continue listening to you, to other Black women, or continue the discussion, please do check out Marjon Carlos, your favorite auntie, on her IG. Please share your information for folks so they know where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Marjon_Carlos, and at your favorite auntie show. Check us out every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have an IG Live, and it's an advice show, and I'm just giving all the advice that I can to the people during these times.
Thank you for doing that. We're gonna have to have you on again. Thanks.
I would love to. Thank you for this.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.